And she shared with everybody that she had been out, not because of stomach issues, but because she was struggling with her mental health. And her belief was that in our society, we should honor and respect mental health days so that people don't have to lie and that we can really, you know, connect with each other when people are struggling. We are heroes and dreamers. We are
restless believers. Hello, you lovely soul. It's so beautiful that you're here and that you're joining my conversation with my guest today. Melissa Pyrch has been a teacher for 20 years, and she's not only teaching English and public speaking, but she's also really encouraging her students to pursue their passion and follow their dreams. And in this amazing interview, she shares advice on how to overcome depression. She teaches a lot about how you can make decisions, and she's also telling you how you can find your passion. And yeah, stay tuned and enjoy this beautiful conversation. Melissa, welcome to Empowering Vibez, and thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited and so deeply grateful that you're here and that you're spending your precious time with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you and hopefully lend some great advice to your audience as well.
I am 100% convinced of that. For the people or the viewers, the listeners who don't know you yet, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Melissa Pyrch, and I have actually been teaching high school English for over 2 decades. And I just absolutely love my job. I love working with teenagers. And as a result of that work, I was motivated a couple of years ago to kind of give my attention to what I've always been passionate about, which is writing and writing a book. And in about a month, my book will land in stores and online, and I'm now calling myself an author too. So here I am.
First of all, congratulations to your book. This is so amazing. And I know that the book is like a guide for students, guiding them, but all these like universal principles are applying as well to college students and actually to all of us. Do you want to share with us a little bit? Like, what are the lessons that you're sharing in your book?
Yeah, so it's called Beyond the Bell, and it's 12 lessons for navigating your life after high school. And it kind of takes you through some of those major milestones that, just like you mentioned, all of us go through once we leave the comfort of high school and education, and we're really left with so many choices. So the book begins with the first lesson, Welcome Fear, which is what we all, I think, face in the decision-making process, is the worry and the fear of making maybe the wrong one and feeling the gravity of this time in our lives. And then it really takes you through things like being brave as you face your life and allowing yourself to make mistakes. It takes you through the struggle sometimes of, you know, we all have fails. We all have unfortunate moments, and how to get ourselves back up after those maybe moments of defeat. And then it ends with the chapter Graduate with Grace, which is, I use the word graduate in a larger sense, which is kind of move on and go after what it is that your heart is telling you to pursue. And that, I think, is applicable to the high school student, the college student, or really just any of us who are feeling a moment in our lives where we're ready to pursue maybe a dream that's been pulling at our heartstrings. So the book was a labor of love. It's inspired by my students. So I can't wait to share it with everybody. And it definitely has been a journey to be traditionally published. So I think all of our biggest dreams are really tricky. And I just made this commitment to my students that I would show them that if I'm pushing them to go for their dreams, they should go for their dreams as well. And like I said, September 6th, the book is out in stores, online. It's on pre-order now all over the place. And it's been amazing. It's been my biggest dream come true. And hopefully it will help readers pursue their biggest dreams as well.
Well, once again, congratulations. And I
Thank
can
you.
really feel how much love you put into that book. And I'm sure it will sell amazingly and will change lots of life, because I feel like everything that really truly comes from the heart, that is just what touches people. So
Yeah. I think when people pursue things for the money or for the accolades, I do think there's just it's just not the way it's all going to come together. And again, I'm a teacher through and through. I love my job. I love my students. And this is kind of an icing on the cake for me. So it really is. It's just been a labor of love. And I think that's really in our lives where the other stuff comes when we do things, especially in the creative space. I mean, you're doing it here with your podcast, right? You do it for the love of just meeting people and helping people. And then I think all the other stuff kind of shows up.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's so beautiful what kind of like that you're walking your talk and not just like preaching, but then actually you're kind of like not doing it yourself. And it's very, very beautiful. And I can only say, like, I wish I had teachers like this. Like, this is very, very inspiring.
I think especially when you're working with kids, I think kids can see right through adults more so than adults can. And I appreciate you saying that because kids need examples of people doing it, not just talking about it, right? It's the same thing when you're working with little kids. If any of your listeners are moms, I have 3 children of my own, and telling my kids, you can do whatever you want in life and be respectful to people. That's great, great messages, but doing those things, being respectful, being a good person, I think that's when the trickle down effect happens and kids really do live those words.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why one of my favorite quotes in the whole wide world is the Gandhi one with like, be the change you want to see in the world. I feel like this is just so powerful that I'm getting goosebumps right now. So it's very, very inspiring that you are a person who's like also living by that. You mentioned already that one of the lessons is kind of like, okay, what way to go after, in that case, like after school or high school or even after college or like maybe after quitting one job. How do we, if somebody is like standing in front of a decision, for example, like quitting a job or not, or like starting this degree or that degree, or maybe starting a business, how do we figure out if how do we make decisions? What can guide us in that process?
Yeah, I think that, one of the struggles people have in making big life decisions is the noise that really does, is all around. And a big principle in my book is really silencing all of that and listening to your gut and really looking back at who you are and your core values. Because I think sometimes that what we are meant to be, what we are meant to do, we've kind of known all along, and it's just a question of being brave to try. And it's funny. I was just talking to someone the other day who does a podcast, and it took her decades to get to a point where she was like, "I'm going to do this." But as a kid, she always felt like, I don't know, I kind of like talking to people, and I love talk shows, and I love getting to know people. And her whole life, the breadcrumbs were there to follow this path. And I think the same was there for me. I always loved English. I always loved to write. I always loved to read. I loved people. So while I was trying to write this fiction book that never got off the ground, it didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel right. I think the thought of talking to people and writing a self-help book for teenagers was within me all along. If I would have silenced what was around me, the people saying, you should go for your administrative degree. You should, oh, you're a great teacher. Don't you want to be the department head? And I just kept hearing these ideas of what maybe other paths could have been for me, even before I became a teacher. There were people thinking, oh, you're great with kids. I didn't want to do that. So I really think that silencing the voices, listening to your heart, and really honing in on and leaning into the things that bring you joy helps us really make the decisions. The other layer of that is trusting yourself to the point where you make those leaps. It doesn't ensure that it's going to work out. And it doesn't also mean that you're going to have a smooth road ahead. Nobody does. So you also have to embrace the failure, embrace the uncomfortability as you move forward. And I think with even writing this book, I kind of faced it knowing that I would get a lot of rejection. So when all the rejection letters came in from the publishers, I was ready for it. I was okay with it. You know, you have to get to a point where you're comfortable enough that this is what you really want, that no matter what comes your way, you're not going to stand. You're not going to stand for it. You're going to power on. So it's a lot of different things. And I think it comes with growth.
Yeah, beautiful. I know though, like, lots of people know all these things in theory, but then in reality, there's like huge self-doubt. And
Yes.
how, once somebody figured out, like, okay, that's my dream, that's my goal, how do we get the courage to actually act in that direction and then at the end, finally, like, truly pursue it?
So that's a great question, and one that I stumbled on a lot through the process, because you're right. We have imposter syndrome, we have self-doubt, we have the negative talk that kind of infiltrates our head when we're going for something that feels really huge and really important in our lives. And one of the things that I have found, and most of the people that I know, most of the students I've seen go after their dreams, is really to assess often who you surround yourself with and the experiences and the energy that you engage yourself in. So, it's really hard. Like for me, for example, I am loyal to a fault. I mean, one of my best friends I met in nursery school, and she was in my wedding. Like, I don't leave people, once you're my person, I, hold tight to you, and you're my person. That being said, when we surround ourselves with the right people, that's wonderful. But when we see that people are maybe doubting us or making us feel more insecure about something, it's okay to step back from those people. We don't need to put a big black X on them and say, I'm putting up a boundary. We don't need to do that, but we do need to distance ourselves from those people and that energy that isn't in line with what we truly want in our lives. So that way, when the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome comes in, you have your people reminding you and supporting you that you can do it. And I've been so lucky to have one of my best friends and colleagues, no matter what letter I got through the mail that said no, she was right there saying, a couple of them saying, no, you have to do this. This is more important. You have to do this for kids. Like, more people need this. And just having those reminders of people that love you unconditionally does help you say, you know what? This dream is bigger than the voices. This dream is bigger than me. And I always felt that way about this book. I felt like, even in my classroom, I tell my colleagues that I see that have these qualities too. I'm like, you're bigger than that room. So you have to push. And I think when we surround ourselves with people that high five us in that direction, that can help quell the inevitable fear, worry, doubt that we have on the road. And it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that. Here it comes again and do something about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing this. This is very, very concrete advice that people can really put into place. So thank you so much. I know you're also teaching public speaking. Mm-hmm. And I've once read that public speaking, or people are more afraid of public speaking than of dying, which I was very shocked about reading. So for somebody listening who would like to kind of like pursue, because in my opinion, everybody has a message, and not everybody has it through the art of speaking. Some people prefer writing and so on. But I know there are lots of people, especially now that we have social media, who kind of like want to share the message, but then there's like so much fear of it. How can we overcome this fear of like speaking our truth?
So I think, there's a couple of things here. First of all, in public speaking, I always tell my kids, plan prepare and practice. And that is, if you have something coming up in work, because like you said, most people in their careers, in their lives, will have to utilize that skill. So I teach my kids, yes, you're absolutely right. It is a major fear. But you can quell that fear by being prepared, just like everything else in your life. When you prepare, at least you're going in there with, some weapons, some armor that you're ready to go. So that's that layer of it. I also encourage people that, when you have an opportunity, and it could be even in a classroom or at work, when there's a question, push yourself to contribute. The more you do it, the more you will get comfortable with hearing your own voice, and also being open to that feedback, because you can't grow without some kind of constructive criticism either. So that's, the public speaking piece. That's just something that you have to continue to push yourself. And I always recommend a public speaking class. And now with all this online opportunity, dig into it, because I think I'm lucky that I teach it on a high school level. So kids go to college and feel at least, okay, I've learned some of the basics. I didn't take public speaking until I was in my undergraduate. Some people never take public speaking. So they're just thrown into these workplace situations where they're in front of a board or in front of, people that really are in control of their careers, and then we're in an interview, and then there's this real fear. So yeah, I would definitely say practice, practice, practice. When you want to share your story or your message, that is another layer, because now you've got to not only get comfortable with public speaking about, like I said, workplace things, contributing in a classroom, but a personal story is another layer, and it requires you to get to a place where you are allowing yourself to be vulnerable and to be okay with however your message lands. And that is something that, to be honest with you, took me time to work on with, even with this book. I mean, there's stories in this book and things that I'm sharing even in these interviews that I don't know that I could have shared 10 years ago or 5 years ago. It takes time to get yourself to a place where helping people and sharing your story so other people can benefit from it. I think it takes time to see that cause is bigger than your insecurity and doubt. So yeah, that other layer is a tough one for sure. But like I said, realizing your purpose and really being just committed to your purpose, I think that you can make that happen. You can get into that vulnerable space and be really okay with it. When you're doing something creative, if you're doing your best, if you have the right intention, you've got to be okay with however it lands.
Thank you. That's very beautiful advice. You just mentioned purpose. I get very often the question, how do I find my purpose? What's your advice on that?
Well, I think your purpose has to feel right. I think that it doesn't feel like work when you're engaging. And I think that your purpose comes from when you're doing something and you just could do it all day long and you don't even care if you're paid for it. And there have been so many times in my classroom where I've joked with my students and said, I can't believe they just paid me from that. How much fun did we just have this period? And my kids would be like, yeah, I can't believe we got paid for that. Like, we would joke about it, because when you have your purpose in line, when you truly love what you do, it won't feel like work all the time. Don't get me wrong. Some days I'm like, these kids are killing me. Some days writing this book, I felt like, whoa, this is exhausting, but you'll go forward in spite of that. And it really does light you up and brings you such joy that you can't imagine not doing it. How do you find that? You've got to be open to trying whatever comes your way. You've got to be open to saying yes to things that maybe you're doubting. And you also have to be really open to leaving your comfort zone. Writing this book forced me out of my comfort zone. There were times where I would write something and say, I can't tell them that. And I would delete it, or I would share a story that happened in my classroom and I'd say, I don't know, I'd delete it. And then I got to a point where I just said, I'm going there because this is my purpose. So yeah, I would say pay attention to how you're feeling doing different activities. And it could be anything. It could be, hanging out with a friend. It could be kayaking. It could be something at work, that there's a project at work that you just love. And then you're like, I want to do more of that. Well, then steer yourself in that direction, so it has to open, honest, out of that comfort zone, and really paying close attention to how you feel and acknowledging, maybe even writing things down as you're feeling that excitement so you could navigate through it.
Thank you. That's beautiful advice. Did you always have such an empowering mindset?
No, that's a great question. And that's, no, I absolutely didn't. I felt like I grew into this place. I grew into it. Like I said, if you would have spoken to me, even as a first year teacher, I was a different teacher. When I started, I was 22 years old. I was strict. I just didn't have the insight that I have now. And I didn't have I think, compassion for the teenager that I have now after working with them for so long. I joke in my book that when I was a younger teacher, my mother used to say to me, you'll be a better teacher when you're a mother. A lot of people used to say that. And I used to get so angry because I felt like, how dare they say that? But the truth of the matter is, working with teenagers and seeing them as young people, young kids that are just trying their best, really has made me a better teacher. So, no, I don't think I had this mindset when I first started teaching. And like I said, I don't think I could have written this book years ago. It's really been a growth process for me. I also was someone in my 20s who suffered extreme heartbreak in relationships, allowed the wrong people to treat me in ways that I didn't deserve, but I didn't have the mindset or the strength to speak up for myself or to demand the way that people should treat each other. And I think through those experiences, I've been able to write this book, share those things, and give kids advice on how to hopefully avoid some of the growing pains that I have gone through and that I've seen so many students go through. So yeah, the answer is no, which also gives, I hope, readers and listeners hope that you can shift and change when you're ready at any time. So if you're listening to this or you're reading the book thinking, man, I'm way behind, you're not. You just got to step up to the plate and get ready to embrace who you really want to be and what you really can do. Because it's in all of us. It's just a question of, going for it.
Absolutely. What were your biggest lessons as a teacher?
I think my biggest lessons as a teacher came from my students. And, I was asked the other day, where do I find magic? Where do I feel like there is magic? And I think that it's in the walls of that classroom, but it's really in just in the people that we surround ourselves with. One of my students, I'll tell you, one of the things that really blew my mind as an educator, one of my students got up in front of the room after she was out for weeks. And we were working on an assignment titled This I Believe. And the kids had to declare, they were seniors, let's get into our core values. And I want you to share for everybody what your core value is, what do you believe, and some stories about how you came to that belief. So after being out for 2 weeks, she said to me, can I get this assignment done? I want to get credit for it. So I said, sure. She got up in front of the room and read this assignment to everybody. And she shared with everybody that she had been out, not because of stomach issues, but because she was struggling with her mental health. And her belief was that in our society, we should honor and respect mental health days. so that people don't have to lie and that we can really, you know, connect with each other when people are struggling. And I remember just sitting in my classroom and you could hear a pin drop. And I remember in that moment just feeling like, wow, you know, we need to pay attention to our young people. And as adults, you know, we have a lot to learn from them. And really, the beauty of creating a space where a kid can feel comfortable doing that just was everything to me. So, my greatest lesson as a teacher, I think, is that I'm not in charge like most teachers, right? That's what you think. The teacher's in charge. It's that they need to lead. And that's where the magic really happens in a classroom. And I think in life, let people teach you. And that's where you grow.
Thank you for sharing this beautiful story. I truly just got goosebumps all over my body when you said that. So I can't imagine how much bravery it must take to be, I don't know, like 16 years old or something and share something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kids do that so much that you're sitting there thinking, you know, I've actually said so many times, I joke in my classroom, like, when I grow up, I want to be you, because I think these kids are so far beyond where so many of us were or are, and we could just learn so much from kids today, for sure. And I think they get I say it in my book, kids get a bad rap. You know, when I say I work with teenagers, people are like, that sounds terrible, right? But there's so much beauty in it. Can they be tough? Sure. I think when you're a mom or a dad of teenagers, you know, you think this is so hard, but I think there's so much beauty in it too.
Yeah. Who was the most influential person in your life, and how did they influence you?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think I've had many influences in my life. Probably in this space and with writing my book, I think I would say I have two colleagues. One is a dear friend, Carol, who is retired, and my other dear friend, Allison, who is my colleague now. And as English teachers, we have spent so much time, you know, with literature, talking about life, talking about approach to life, human condition. And they have been such positive influences on my teaching, but also on my mindset, and teaching me about gratitude, practicing gratitude, and sharing with me some major players in this personal growth space that, you know, like Brene Brown and Leo Buscaglia, you know, just that those influences have really changed my life. So I would say those two colleagues have really shifted my mindset.
Thank you. Would you like to share a few more lessons of your book with us?
Yeah. One of the important lessons, which I will tell you, again, you know, talking about finding your purpose and creating your path and failing. One of the messages in my book is like I mentioned, get your heart broken, where I talk about that stage of your life, could be in high school, after high school, college, or even just in your 20s, where you feel like you found the one and you go all in, and then you get your heart broken, which is a common thing that happens to so many of us. The chapter actually opens up with talking about the heartbreak sometimes that kids endure when they watch their parents get divorced, or they watch the love that they, you know, expected to be there for them, you know, watching that and almost losing a love that they were never involved in. Like they never had the chance to fall in love, but yet they've lost that love, or their heart was broken by that love. So that chapter is really dear to my heart because it came from, I teach college essay, and a lot of my students over the years have written about their parents' divorces and how that's changed them as people and how it's shaped them in good and bad ways. So that chapter started out as just a story about a heartbreak that I had and how I recovered from that love. And then it morphed into addressing what teenagers really sometimes endure, and then also dealing with personal heartbreak. And that chapter also goes into a bout that I had with extreme depression and dealing with that. And, that was a story that I never thought I would share, to be honest with you. But in writing this book, and especially through the pandemic and in the wake of the pandemic, and seeing so many of my students struggle with their mental health, I found it to be really important to shine a light and humanize that piece. And I shared that in that chapter as well, and let the readers know that sometimes those teachers or those adults in your life that you think have it all together also struggled, also went through bouts of depression, anxiety, had to go on medication. And guess what? We're all still standing. So that chapter is really dear to my heart, really hard to read, wrote it a million times, deleted it a million, deleted it, wrote it, deleted it. It was really tough, but I think it's one of the strongest chapters and the most needed chapters in the book. And yeah, that one. And as I mentioned, Be Brave is really important to me, which just highlights my students. And that just, man, I loved writing that chapter. And it was just so fun to reach out to former students that some of the kids I write about in this book, I had them 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I'm like, hey, I'm working on my book, and I want to share, where you are and who you are now, and what is it that you had to face. And they were just, I think what you'll see in this book and within all these chapters is you'll see the connection between people. And I think readers will find themselves in the pages of this book. So yeah, I would say those chapters just really stick out when I think about the book as a whole body of work.
Thank you very much for sharing your vulnerability. I think we all need to talk so much more about mental health, because that just vanishes the shame and the guilt that's all around mental health problems. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. I myself struggled with depression. Yeah. I know what it feels like. I know the shame and the hiding about it. So that you're telling your story, voicing it is so needed. And thank you so much.
Yeah, I think, it's so great. And thank you for sharing that with me, because I think once someone speaks up, and this is what I teach in my classroom, once someone speaks up, all of a sudden you've opened the door for other people to say me too. And that day that one student stood up in my room when she finished, I mean, I was just blown away, because I thought, man, here I am, I'm still struggling to share that piece of myself. And here she is, 17, and it's like, hey guys, this is what's going on. So when she finished, I said to my classroom of students, I said, guys, can I just ask quickly? I said, did any of you ever struggle with getting out of bed in the morning, or struggling to get to school, or feeling like you couldn't face the day, or even dealt with depression or anxiety? I said, because I have. And then almost every kid in the room raised a hand, and it just closed the gap between people. And I think when we share, all of a sudden we connect, and that's what life is about. It's about connections. It's not about the other nonsense that we often focus on. And if we could get to a point where we spend most of our energy where it matters, I think we'll all be a lot happier, and let go of the stuff that does bring us down.
Especially depression, so often a facet of it is loneliness. That is just where it's like the connection almost like makes the depression like not fade away, but fade so much lighter, because we feel like we don't carry all the weight by ourselves. And that's why it's so needed. I'm so, so grateful for you sharing like this.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to somebody listening who's also struggling right now with depression or mental health problems?
Yeah, I think I think it's okay to first of all acknowledge it. I think it's okay to acknowledge that you're struggling. I think it's okay to go to the people in your life and share. There's no shame in it. You're not alone. And I think also there's so many wonderful ways to get help now that I think taking that step is so important. And, there's just so many ways to get on a Zoom call with someone and talk through things, a professional that can help you. For students, I actually took a youth mental health first aid class to get more information myself and to support kids. And one of the things that we learn in that class is to talk and ask people, are you okay? You don't seem to be yourself today. So if you're struggling, going to somebody and saying, I don't feel right, I don't feel myself, God, you just opened a door. It's as simple as that. So that would be my advice. Acknowledge it, and really face it, because hiding it or being shameful of it it's just counterproductive. And most people will open arms, take you in, and be happy to support. And if you don't have a person like that in your life, there's numbers to call, there's the support that you need, but get the support.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I have a question that I'd like to ask everybody of my guests, and it's like, I'm giving you the power to move back the hands of time, and you meet your 18-year-old self, and you're allowed to share 3 wisdoms with her. What would you say?
One, I would say, first of all, trust your gut. 100%. Trust your gut. Go with what feels right. Embody what speaks to you, and just really run with it. That's the first thing I would say. And let go of some of that insecurity. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is to be more proud of who you are and your accomplishments. I think as teenagers, we don't give ourselves enough credit. We're constantly hearing from adults, you'll figure it out when you're in the real world, which is so unfair because, my God, 18 years of your life, 17 years of your life is a nice chunk. So many high school kids go through so much. And I feel like, give yourself credit for what you've gone through. So that's the second thing I would say to myself, is be proud of yourself and give yourself credit. And then the third thing I would say is keep your friends who you love and who love you, give them the time that they need, and not worry so much about, being in that group. I think as teenagers, we want so badly to be accepted. And I remember my teenage self worrying so much about the social scene and about being accepted by the right people. And I wish I knew then that the right people were the people that made me feel good and who loved me, even for all my crazy quirks and sense of humor and all that good stuff. So that's, I think, what I would, I think there's probably more. There's a lot I would have liked. I think that's why I wrote this book. I had a lot to say.
I just wanted to say, you would probably travel there and say, like, read that book.
I have a lot to say in here. I joke. I'm like, hold on. I'll start with you. In fact, the book starts with, I wish someone did this for me when I was in high school. So It's in here. But this is the advanced reader copy. But it's, man, if we could turn back time.
Yeah, absolutely. I was the other day doing like a seminar about how to do the education space, like how to be kind of like a coach or in the education space. Yeah. And it was talking about like the target customer or who you're addressing. And it was kind of like basically yourself 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and so on. Right. And I do think we go through all the pain, all the suffering that we go through to share that with others and help them to come out of theirs and so on. So
100%. And I think that, we joke, but we wouldn't have listened to ourselves back then anyway.
Very, very true. Absolutely. My last question for everybody who wants to buy the book or get in touch with you, where can we find you? Where can we find your book?
So the book is right now it's on pre-order all over the place. It's on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble. Don't forget to support your local booksellers. I love to say that too. So yes, that is all over the place and will officially drop. So it will be in your mailbox on September 6th. So we're getting down to the wire, which is super exciting. And you can find me at melissapyrch.com or regularly on Instagram at Pyrch Gets Published. That's Pyrch Gets Published. And that was an Instagram account that I started a few years ago that is really my journey through following my dream. And I made it for my students. I said, follow me and watch me. And it's just been the biggest gift.
Melissa, thank you so much for your time. Truly, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. The world needs more teachers like you. I find it so valuable that you are going through values with your students, that you're going like teaching them how to pursue their dreams, that you're encouraging them. It's like truly, you can feel also the passion that you have for teaching and your students. So keep going. I am so proud of you that you followed your dreams, that you published a book. You're an inspiration to me. And thank you so much for sharing all your wisdoms with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And if any of your listeners, want to do it, traditionally published, go for it. Big publishers, little publishers, you will find the right one. I'm so grateful for G&D Media. And I think, just don't stop. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, I would like to know from you, what was your biggest takeaway and how can you put it into action starting now? Leave a comment below or hop over to Instagram at Empowering Vibez and leave a comment on the post of today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this served you, and never forget to shine your light.